Muslims found cricket a diversion from life in India. Cricket for them had begun at Aligarh University and endeavouring to have their own place, the Islam Gymkhana. The idea to have modern facilities to play cricket with flair and skill, even those contemptuous of the idea recommended if Parsis could have been facilitated, Muslims need to be accommodated. To have in Islam Gymkhana, a place pioneered by Lukmani and Tayyabji families, they financed the construction of the building. A family from Gujarat, they had plenty of money to exhaust to back the Muslims up. At the Islam Gymkhana, a place pioneered by Lukmani and Tayyabji families, they sponsored the construction of the building from Gujarat. They had money to back them up. A family Tayyabjis of Gujarat were moneyed, had several businesses and were rich in power, politics, education and even produced top lawyers. They first contemplated to organize Muslim cricket in Bombay. India's government wasn't keen to provide a separate piece of land for the Muslims to construct a Gymkhana building. Cricket in India was prominent and it needed an infrastructure. Cricket was immediately recognized by Tayyabjis, seeing it as a catalyst for change. Islam Gymkhana to Muslim could be what Parsi was to Parsis, and it could also be an identity to them. In 1883, Tayyabji sponsored a club. Now was required a building and a ground, and their work at Mumbai was celebratory, evoking a concept to become a place for Muslims to play, representation of their community, even religiosity and identity. In 1891, in their endeavour to promote Muslim cricket and to see it flourish, in 1890, 7 years into this formation, it was named as Islam Gymkhana. To have a club building, Tayyabjis, the patrons, wrote to the governor of the Bombay, Lord Rea. In one of the rare and exclusive meetings, Rea refused to honour their request. The excuse was flimsy. The governor showed his inability, having posted back to England, and set to relinquish the office. His was the evasion at its best to avoid political and communal unpopularity. Islam Gymkhana had to be constructed, an unproposing jumble, unthinkable in a country like India. Now it seemed it could have a structure worthy of its centrepiece. The typical Victorian-style pavilion suited more to cricket than to Mohammedan philosophy. To them, the game itself was so essentially British. So beautifully it was planned, the rosy brickwork, ornamented iron and terracotta, vast window space and solid flanking towers combined to produce an effect that was once lavish but light, substantial without being stolid. It could have been a cheerful sight, a fitting advice for the Muslims players and their elite that was, at the time, very much strong in regional politics and not only of cricket. In 1891, Secretary of the Islam Gymkhana wrote to the Public Works Department. To them, the land had to be allotted and registered, and their contention was based on precedence. If Parsis could be allowed to have a Gymkhana, then why couldn't the Muslims have such a facility? Members already joined, donations were setting in, free-flowing, still the management of the club weren't allowed to progress. Their opposition was stubborn. At both ends, the two parties were lost in interpretation of civil law and intensive paperwork, noting, comments, etc. There was a piece of land recovered from the ocean and the government had taken its custody and weren't really keen to cede their rights. Lord Harris, the ex-England captain, a test cricketer and governor of Bombay, replacing Lord Rea, and had a different mindset, fusing cricket, national symbolism and political expediency. The tradition aimed to bind the new, less educated public to each other, to reincarnate a social fabric where communalism couldn't really interpret their nationalism. The challenge of democracy faced him to define new ways of cementing national unity around the existing institutions, including the monarchy, which in this era had become a symbol of both national and empire, of so typically English subsumed with the local population in the subcontinent. To Lord Harris, cricket could consolidate its ideology. To Harris, there was a precedent. If Parsis could have been provided the land, why couldn't the Muslims allowed to construct their Islam or Mohammedan or Muslim Gymkhana building? Harris wrote, "I do not see how we can refuse a piece of ground to Mohammedan Gymkhana on the sea face." Harris also noted Parsi and Bombay Gymkhanas had been given leases of public lands virtually free and Muslims to him a strong case. In September 1892, a plot next to the Parsi Gymkhana measuring 452 square feet was allowed by the government to Islam Gymkhana. Rent was affordable, only ₹12 per annum. News was carried in Bombay Gazette in its issue of September 23rd. The moment Muslims were provided the land, predictably, management of the Hindu club convened their meeting, and they weren't, being in majority of India, weren't ready to be left behind. A Gujarati merchant, G.P. Jivandas, agreed to donate ₹10,000, whilst two of his relatives pledged ₹5,000 between them to urgently start construction of Hindu Gymkhana, the plot allotted to them situated next to the Islam Gymkhana. With the money at their disposal, 55 Hindu players had written a letter to the Secretary of Public Works Department, successfully managing to get the land granted.